Hey everybody, it's your girl Shermaine and we coming up here again. I got my girl Desiree with me today and we are doing the same thing. We're unpacking, we're building, we're healing, and we're just looking for God to do some things in this podcast right here. Today we are going to do the second part of overcoming the darkness. Girl, after last week, I had so many people reach out. Some older people older than us. I had youth reach out, like teenagers, young adults. Like I had a lot of people that was like, she's talking for me. Like she's actually talking about what I'm dealing with. And that kind of touched me because you never know, sometimes we focus in on a certain group. Like, single moms, divorced women, those that's just trying to find their way. But to see so many, and I'm not just talking about the young ladies, I'm talking about the young men too and the older men. And so I said, wow, you just don't know what people are really going through. And so to pick back up from last week, I think one of the things that I heard so many people say was they've been there and some of their issues they're still there. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people, like they suppress it and push it, but they're still there and they don't want to be there. And I think we ended it on, getting help. Like, what are your recommendations when it comes to somebody that's just trying to overcome it, but they don't really want to face it too? They don't want to face it and they don't want to tell people their business.
Get over it.
Get over it.
Get over that idea of this, I have to hold this in. Mm-hmm. It's my business. Everything's your business.
Right.
But how are you going to move past that? What are you going to do to get beyond that state? Do you want to stay in that limbo?
Right.
Do you want to stay stuck? Like, just talk.
I think sometimes people get into the survival mode, meaning I'm not living, but I'm just learning how to survive. I'm learning how to cope. And the coping issue is just finding a way to get numb or to get a temporary fix, right? And then they think they can handle it until they get back to the point where now it's darker than what it was at first. Mm-hmm. Because I'm making it worse because I'm not even acknowledging how I feel.
You're just going to keep digging that hole deeper and deeper and deeper. Like, I cannot say it enough. Mm-hmm. To talk. Talk it out. Talk it out loud to yourself. Talk it out loud to a friend. If you feel like you don't have a friend, get a therapist.
Yeah.
Get a therapist. That's what they're paid to listen to me talk about the same stuff over and over again.
Why are we scared of therapists?
And I don't know why there's a stigma around therapy. Mm-hmm. When this is a complete stranger. It's a stranger. Right. They don't know you from a can of string beans on aisle 7.
Right.
Like, why do you think that is such a bad thing to let that one person in when they don't know you? They don't know you.
Right. I think, like, for me growing up, if I had to reach out to a therapist, that means that I was, like, gone. And,
they make it as if you're crazy. I think that's what, like, it comes back to. Sometimes people are like, well, there's nothing wrong with me. Okay. But you're in that situation.
Right.
So there's something wrong. Maybe it's nothing wrong with you, but it's something wrong with your situation.
In the atmosphere.
And that's not healthy.
Right.
So I think I had reached a point where I was like, okay, I need somebody else who is not a friend who mm-hmm. knows me.
Right.
Who's not family who knows me. Mm-hmm. Who's not a pastor who knows the other person.
Right.
I need somebody who's unbiased because I need honesty. Right. I need someone to actually help me because I cannot help myself. God put these resources here. So we can use them because
How
we
did
can't
you
do it
know?
ourselves.
How did you know that you couldn't help yourself anymore? Because I think a lot of the times we think that we can help ourselves and we can, we can fix this. Like, what happened to the point where you said, wait a minute, I really can't help myself?
For me, it was 2019.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I started with my current therapist, my first and my only therapist, because I had went to counseling through church,
mm-hmm.
total bust.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nothing on the pastors, like, nothing on them per se,
right.
but I realized they are not equipped to help me the way that a trained professional is equipped and knows the brain and can see through the other person and see through me,
mm-hmm.
and not have a one-sided opinion.
Right.
And I wasn't being heard, and that's the main thing. I was not being heard. I wasn't being heard in my marriage. I wasn't being heard by the people that I thought I could come and have counsel through. And I just felt like I had hit a wall. Like, okay, I know what I'm feeling, but I'm made to feel like I'm crazy. And when I hit that wall, I was like, either I'm going to do some harm by not even physical harm to myself, but like harm to my child, because at that time I only had my son. And I'm like, I don't even know how I can be fully present for him in this moment.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, maybe something is wrong with me. I did come to that too. I was like, okay, well, maybe something is wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody else is seeing what I'm saying.
Right.
But then I'm like, well, what the advice that I get from my family and my best friend, it's wise counsel, and it makes sense, and they're not siding with him, they're not siding with me.
Mm-hmm.
But why can't outside people see what I'm saying?
Right.
So I was like, okay, enough is enough. I'm just going to try therapy. If it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. I mean, what can it do? I'm already in a sucky situation, so I might as well just try it.
Right.
And when I tried it, I was like, oh, this is why people go to counseling. This is why people go to therapy. Right. This is why people go to therapy outside of church.
Right.
Because it can be very one-sided in church.
And I think even with that, because I can think of a time where I was going to counseling at church, right? It was someone that I knew. It wasn't the church I'm with now. It wasn't my leadership now, but still, what I learned from that experience is, first of all, if I see them on a regular, I'm not going to tell them everything.
Exactly.
Right? And so only they see what I let them see, what I allow them to see. And so when I bring them a problem, I don't even show them the entire problem. So that was a me issue. I don't show them the entire problem because I'm still protecting. I'm protecting, different people connected to my problem. And so I don't want them to look like this big bad wolf in front of everybody. But at the same time, a problem can't get resolved if the whole picture isn't being painted. Mm-hmm. And so then I told my doctor, I think I need help. I need help. I was feeling really low. So she suggested that I start going to a therapist. And when I started going to the therapist, the first time I went, I was like trying to do the same thing, like present a picture, present something without showing the whole picture. And so she called me out right then and there, and she said, well, the way it's going to help you is if you actually show up 100%. And showing up 100% means that you have to show me the picture. And so when you show the picture, it's hard for you to show the picture to people that you talk to on an everyday basis because in a sense, you have created an image about yourself. And I'm not taking away from best friends. I'm not taking away from parents. I'm not taking away from your source. But it's something about being able to be 100% just vulnerable without, oh, I didn't know you was going through all of that. Or why didn't you already tell me this, you know? And so I think with that, in order for us to get to that step of knowing that we really need help, we got to look at the whole picture, the 100%, 100% of the image versus just 75%.
You can't pick and choose what you want to work through.
Right.
You got to work through it all.
Because when you learn it, all of it is part of the problem.
All of it. I had to pick apart every little thing. I had to remember stuff or try to remember stuff that I had suppressed. And some of the stuff, still to this day, like, I can't remember some of the stuff that went on because that's how trauma works. Like,
and you don't even know that.
You don't know it until somebody reminds you. Like,
right.
There's things that my best friend would tell me that I did, and I didn't know I did it. And then once she starts telling me, I'm like, oh, okay, I remember that. Right. Now I remember. Right. Okay, then I can go back. Like, my brain, I can remember days. I can remember how it felt outside. I can remember what I had on. Like, stuff like that. But then really bad stuff that for whatever reason, I can't remember until my memory is jogged. So I had to work through all of that.
Right.
And I'm still working through some of it, but not to the degree that I was before, because I put the necessary things in place so that this was a constant healing journey, so that when other things came, I knew how to work through it. I knew how to talk about it.
Right.
Because I didn't know how to do that before.
I think it's the human body. Like, when something happens to us, and if it's so abnormal, we push it. Like, we push it and we suppress it. When I started writing Dear Sis, Are You Screaming in Silence? I went down a memory lane of a lot of stuff that I had forgot. Like, it was like one door opened up another door, and it was like, wow, I didn't even remember that and I'm talking about like 5 years old, 7 years old, but I had to acknowledge it to understand that this was all part of building who I was at that moment. And so to acknowledge it and see it for what it is, maybe now healing can take place. And so that's what I was telling some of the people that reached out, that is more to the story. Like, what you vocalize and what you tell is still more to the story, because what we vocalize, we actually think about it. Like, I know for me, I used to always be ready for an answer when people asked me what was wrong. I gave a typical answer: all is well, all will be well, right? Or I would give on the surface answers, I'm not feeling my best today, but it's okay, But learning me and the fact that sometimes I do really just need to let it out, like you said last week, like, now I'm going to give detail of what's going on, because if I suppress it, it gets worse. If I suppress it, I even talk myself into making myself think that my voice doesn't matter, when in actuality, I'm shutting my voice. And so, okay. So let's go to a few questions. We're going to do questions and then we can continue this off, okay? Okay. So let's do... Okay, what if you know that it's your lifestyle that brings you darkness, but you don't know how to let go of your lifestyle? That's good. That is really good. Well, I'll start off with that one. When you know that it's the people, places, and things that you do that bring weight and take you to a dark place, and you don't want to let it go, that's a reflection of how you see yourself. That's a reflection of you settling. And it's even a reflection of you running with fear, because nobody wants to be alone. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable. Nobody want to feel like, well, if I don't hang with them, or if I don't do this, who else do I have? So this is about how you view yourself. And being brave enough to get uncomfortable, because we want to be cool with everybody, and we want to feel like the atmospheres that we're in, that we can overcome it. We can be the light. But if you know that it's weighing you down, if you know that it's taking you in a dark place, no longer is it the people, places, and things that are the problem, but now you are part of the problem.
Mm-hmm. You gotta know your own self-worth.
Mm.
You gotta learn what that looks like for you. Because if I feel like I'll have nothing if I let go, then that's exactly what you're gonna have. Nothing. But if I believe, or even like I said last week, sometimes you say stuff you don't believe it yet.
Right.
But you say it until you believe it.
Right.
And I mean, I felt like I wasn't worthy of starting over. I wasn't worthy of rightful love. I wasn't worthy of the life that I desired for myself. And I had started to believe that because I thought, this is it. This is it. I'm comfortable. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
You're comfortable where you are. And people don't want to be uncomfortable. It hurts. It's hard.
Whew.
But until you're uncomfortable with your situation, nothing's gonna change. I lived through that uncomfortable season for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And during that season is when I realized it's okay to be in solitude. There's nothing wrong with liking myself. There's nothing wrong with finding myself. It's nothing wrong if I lose friends.
Isn't that part of self-discovery though? Because if it's fear of being by yourself, how do you view yourself? Like, why can't you say, I'm a cool person, or, I'm a good person. I can keep my own self company. And I think it's fear of being lonely.
Fear of being lonely, fear of the unknown. That's really what it is. Like, we fear the unknown.
Like you said, starting over wasn't an issue. It was an issue with me too. I think a lot of the times when I was at the very edge of, you know what, I'm done. I'm over this. I deserve better. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm not going to allow my kids to see this. I am over it. The very thing that stopped me each and every time was starting over.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to start over. I done invested too much in here. And starting over, what does that look like? And I have a lot of baggage in starting over. Who's going to
gonna want me?
Who's going to
want me in all my mess?
At this point, I remember thinking, I don't even want me.
I said, who would want to be with me? I cried in 5 seconds. I'm like, who wants a person with kids? Who's been married that long? Who's only experienced this one person, really? Like, then I'm like, well, I'm sad while I'm here.
Right.
I'm confused while I'm here. Who am I while I'm here? So, get over it. That's what I had to keep telling myself. Get over it.
Get over
it. Get over it. You'll get through it. But that's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard.
I think one of the hardest things in that whole starting over era is I didn't tell myself to get over it. I said, you gotta do it. You just gotta do it. Because at the end of the day, like, it's been so many times where you're literally killing yourself. Like, you're the walking dead. You're just walking through the motions. You're not even here. And I think one of the worst things was for me to actually see myself not be present for my kids. Like,
that's a hard one.
I know I'm their mother, and I know they rely on me, but I have absolutely nothing to give.
But you become a shell. You're just a shell of who you are, and you're walking through a haze.
Yeah.
And you're just going through the motions. And I'm a firm believer of you are what you surround yourself with.
You are what you surround yourself with.
And if my friends or my circle are doing things that I know don't align with the direction of where I want to go, nobody cares what you are called to do if you're still associated with these people, or if you're still being reckless on social media. If you're doing this, nobody cares, because what you're displaying is totally different than what you're saying.
So it's like, in the process of you overcoming that darkness, can you look back and say, a lot of the times I was out my character. Like I was doing stuff that I know I had no business doing, or I was being petty. Because for me, it was times where I knew I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have put that on social media. Like, because in the process of overcoming, sometimes you can be reckless because you go back into a shell. Like, you go back into I don't know. And so now I'm just acting off of emotions. Because one thing about it is when you detach yourself from something, I think one of the hardest things is when you make that decision, now I'm going to start over, whatever that looks like. It doesn't necessarily have to be marriage. It can be a new business. It can be friendships. It can be moving somewhere. But whatever you do, and if you look back and it seems like everything is going good without you, that kind of make you feel away. When you focusing there versus focusing here.
Because it's like, I was there when that was getting started. Or I was there before you were being that happy. Or I was there causing the happiness. Or I was there and you couldn't even be happy. Or we couldn't even do this. We couldn't do that. Not even just saying marriage. Like you said, friendship. Like, you're only doing that because I introduced you to that.
Right.
And now I have to look at you, enjoy life, when that's what I wanted to do with you.
That's yeah. And so when we look back, that still goes back to the healing process. Because what I had to acknowledge about that for me was I had bitterness. I was feeling bitter. I was mad and I was angry.
Rightfully though. Like sometimes and I'm not saying it's a right place to be in, but it's valid.
It's you going through your emotions.
Right.
It's you're feeling all of the trauma, everything that happened to you, and you gotta go through the emotions. The Bible tells us not to be led by our emotions, but you have to go through your emotions.
It never said we can't feel them.
Right.
It never said it was wrong to feel this way.
Right. And so what I understood is every time I look back at a situation, it could have been a friendship, it could have been a relationship, but when I look back in the process of me starting over, and if I felt like, oh, well, they doing better than me, or they doing better now than what they were doing when they were with me, or when I was connected to it. So is it something wrong with me? Or, what, I can't stand that. Or, God, why you ain't dealing with that? Because I'm over here struggling right now. But that's God showing me. Now I can see that was God showing me my heart posture. So now I have to acknowledge it. Because at the end of the day, here's the thing. You have to understand it's relationship, marriage, family dynamic, whatever it is. In order for you to grow, forgiveness has to take place. And that's a hard one. That is a hard one. It's hard to forgive people in situations. It's so hard to do it when you feel like you was there so long, saying, hey, you're hurting me. Hey, this hurts. All I need you to do is show up for me. All I need you to do is apologize. But you build it and you suppress it. You build up animosity. You build up anger and frustration. So now it's hard to forgive.
And that's why they say forgiveness is for you, not for the other person.
That's
because they're still going to live their life while you're over here sad, depressed, wondering why, or doing this and doing that, acting out of your emotions. For what? I need to forgive them, and I need to forgive myself.
Yeah.
And when you can really grasp that, it's like the floodgate floodgates just open up positively for you, because I no longer rely on somebody else to fulfill me.
That.
I no longer rely on somebody else to make me feel good.
You invest in yourself.
Because they're not going to do it. You got to do it. You got to fill your cup. Somebody can add to it, but I got to be the one to fill it.
So, when it comes to forgiving yourself, when you say that, what is one thing that was hard for you to forgive pertaining to yourself? Because for me, I think checking out of me, like checking out of my identity and who I was, I started to try to blend in with everybody else around me because I was so hurt in that dark place, because I felt like, well, me showing up as me wasn't good enough. So now let me just be like you, or let me let you train me on how to act. Because if you train me on how to act, that means that you're going to like me, you're going to love me. And so I think that was the hardest thing for me to forgive pertaining to myself, because I'm a cool person. You know, in that process, that in a dark place, that thing will almost destroy you, because you are so down on yourself and you beat yourself up for so long because it had to be me. We told ourselves that. It had to be me. Like you said, I was the problem.
And you start to believe that.
And you start to believe it. And so that's the hardest thing that I had to do in forgiving myself, was checking out of being the authentic version of me. Because when God took me on this self-love journey, and I learned that, I really do bring stuff to the table. I really am valued. Like, God really did create me in his image. Like, he sent Jesus to down the cross. I used to say, when I remember saying it all the time in church, like, Jesus died for you. Jesus died for you. I had to go practice that for myself, because it was easy for me to pour out to everybody else. But when it came to myself, I couldn't do that. And so I would go home and I would say, Jesus died for me too. And so I am somebody, I am important, but situations and circumstances and people, if you listen and you focus so much on them and how they react to your movements, you will find yourself moving to get a reaction out of them versus moving in who you are. That is draining.
Very. I think for me it was, I had to forgive myself for staying in a situation way too long. I had to forgive myself for not speaking up for myself. And I had to forgive myself for feeling like I had let down my earthly father. Because I am like, you did not instill this in me, what I'm going through. You did not teach me and bring me up this way for me to endure what I'm enduring in this moment. You showed me love. You worked hard to get our family to the place that they were. For me to throw that away, for everything that you worked hard for, I'm just going to let that go? No, I'm not going to do that. Because my Father in heaven doesn't want that. He gave you a vision. My Father, he gave my Father a vision for his family to carry it out.
Right.
And so who am I? Who am I to say I don't want to continue someone's legacy of the power that they had, the influence that they had, the positive spirit that they had, and that people experienced here? I want to be like that. I don't want to be the shell of a person. I want to get back to me.
Get back to me.
Yes, I don't want to disappoint whomever, but I want to get back to me for me so that I can be proud of who I am. Because that's all of who we are. How we're brought up, whether it was negative or positive, it's who we are. But we get to decide what part of that we want.
That I think that when we grow up, we take what we want. We take what looks good and feel good. And we take that to our adulthood. We take that to each version of ourselves, not understanding that it's everything that you've been through that is going to build you for who you are. You know, all of our stories are different, but the way we perceive things, you know, I'm a true believer that everything that I've been through, I refuse to let be in vain. So that's to add to the version of who God wants me to be, so that I'll be able to relate to someone else. Like I told you, the outpour, the inboxes, the questions I was getting, they were saying, man, I've been through that exact thing, or she's talking for me. That's because the things that you went through, they can't be in vain. Even if you were that close to taking your life, that can't be in vain. I got to use that. But sometimes what we do is say, that's shameful. I'm embarrassed about that, so I don't want to talk about that. And so I had to learn that I had to take all of me. And, you know, all of me, sometimes that might be heavy for certain people. But for the right people, for your right audience, for your right ministry, it's just enough. It's just what that person needs.
Because you are always enough.
Because you're always enough.
And I said this to my therapist before. I was like, you know, we always say we affirm and we say we are enough, or I'm worthy. And that's true. But I may not be your cup of tea. So I may not be enough for you, but I'm always enough for myself. And that's okay. That's okay. And I had to sit in that, because that's a you problem, not a me problem.
Right.
Because what you're showing me is you're not ready. You're the one that's not ready, because you have to reflect on what is wrong in your life, your shortcomings. That's not mine to carry.
Right.
And I don't want to carry that anymore.
I'm just working through being me. Okay, here's another question. How do you be intentional about not weighing yourself down with the things that you have been through? How are you intentional with that?
For me, I do a lot of self-work. I do a lot of journaling. I believe in speaking my prayer, but writing my prayers down. I will write it down more often than I'll speak it out sometimes, because I'm a visual person. And so when I see it, I'm going to repeat it to myself.
Right.
I do it with my affirmations. I do it with my gratitude. But I use what I went through as fuel to get me to the next place.
Yeah.
Because if I look back at what I've gone through, it is very sad. And it's easy to fall into that sadness if you stay there, if you ponder on it. I will allow myself 5 minutes. I have 5 minutes to feel what I need to feel. And I'm going to leave the 5 minutes right where it was. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to question, question. But I'm not going beyond 5 minutes. Because once I go beyond 5 minutes, I'm falling deeper and deeper and deeper. And I've been brought out of that dark place, and I don't want to go back there.
That was the next question. So, but So when you give yourself 5 minutes, is this you learning what works for you?
That's what works for me.
Like, did you have to go through an experience to say, this really does work?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because if you tell me you got 5 minutes to get it out and then drop it, I might say, but I need more than 5 minutes. But how did you figure out that method, and how did you know it worked for you?
Because I realized if I was like, this is what I'm feeling, I don't want to think about nothing else. And my whole day is consumed with what I allowed to consume my brain for more than 5 minutes.
Right.
I got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to feel that feeling anymore. I don't want to feel it. And I know that if I need to cry, I'm gonna cry. I can't help that. But I think maybe that's another thing that I learned in therapy. It was you cannot hold on to what was holding you back because it's a weight.
Right.
And if I got to cook dinner, I don't want to be crying in my food. So that was one of the things too. It's like, okay, I got people who are dependent upon me.
Right.
And I cannot function how I need to function if I am stuck. Because I realized I had got to the point where I wanted to just be in bed, or I was getting annoyed with little stuff, which it may very well have been annoying.
Right.
But like, I should not have been reactive in the way that I was.
Right.
And that was because I allowed myself to fall deeper into that place that I was before. Because I didn't cut it off.
So you know, like, it's almost like you know your experience and you know what's going to work for you. So if you sit and entertain it, you see yourself drifting back out. Because that was the next question. And this was from a 14-year-old. Does darkness still follow you? And how do you push it away? And I think that when you overcome something, that doesn't mean that it's not going to still present itself. That doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It's chasing you because it wants to own you, take territorial of you, make you lose your identity. I look at a lot of stuff and I say, you know, with me, I look at a lot of stuff and I say, God, you have so much for me. This is me speaking over myself. God, you have so much for me. But I understand because you have so much for me and I'm trying to walk into it, the enemy chases me. And so whenever I feel a type of darkness or I feel heaviness, I have to acknowledge exactly where it's coming from, and I have to talk to it. Like, I have to talk to it in a sense of not today. Like, this is not going to happen. No, I overcame this. You're not going to try to hold me to something that held me back then. That's not who I am today. Like, I'm not that version. You know, I talk like that because what I understand is just because it follows me doesn't mean that I'm doing anything wrong. Because in this journey, I used to feel like, well, if it keep presenting itself to me, that means I'm attracting it. But it's not that I'm attracting it. It's just that it's chasing me to try to consume me.
And sometimes I feel like it's the fact that we haven't faced it.
Right.
And we haven't acknowledged it.
Right.
Well, sometimes when I am feeling something, I'll say, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now. I see you. I see you doubt. I see you fear.
Yeah.
I see you sadness.
Yeah.
I see you hurt. I see you depression. I see you suicidal ideations. I see you. But you don't get to control the rest of my day. I'm going to let you be here right now. But that's it. That's it.
That's deep.
Because the more I sit in it, the more it's going to consume me. I see you. I'm giving you a hug. I'm speaking to you. I'm letting you know it's okay. It's okay. You can be here for now, but you don't live here. You're a visitor.
Woo.
You are not a resident here anymore.
That is deep.
You are not a resident here anymore. Because didn't I overcome you last year?
Yeah.
Or 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I've come too far in this moment for you to try to take me 10 steps back.
Right.
I see you. I feel you. It's okay. It's okay to move on.
Mm.
We got it from here.
Yeah.
We got it.
I remember a couple of weeks ago talking to my cousin Tyrell, and it might have been a month ago, and we were talking about grief, right? And I was telling him that sometimes you never really realize if you have dealt with grief until you feel it, like until it comes and sneaks up on you, right? And he said something that hit my spirit. He said something that hit my spirit, and I applied it to everything, because just because it comes doesn't mean that you have to accept it. It's gonna come.
Mm-hmm.
It's like darkness. Just because it comes to you, and you may feel it for a moment. You may feel it for a moment, but that's not your posture. That's not who you are today. You have overcame some things, because when we overcome things, we get confronted with them. And it's like, what part of you are going to step up and say, but that's not me anymore. That's not me anymore. Because what you just said, it is super deep, because sometimes you have to acknowledge that you did deal with depression, or you are still dealing with depression, but this is not your forever. And you got to call it out for what it is. You might be here right now, but this isn't your residence. Like, you might be visiting. That is good, girl. You might be visiting. Like, you might come, but you got to go. You got to go.
This is not my permanent situation.
That.
And you can't push it away. Don't push it away. Face it. Speak to it.
And it's like, I don't know, like, y'all going on a journey to find your power and to walk into your fullness. It gives you something that fear hates. Fear hates authority.
Mm-hmm.
Fear hates authority. And when you walk in your authority and you begin to call that thing out, and I love calling on Jesus, but when you call this thing out in the name of Jesus, you do not get to run my life. You do not get to control me. You do not get to take my peace. You do not get to take my joy. I am here. I know who I am. I know who God called me to be. This is when you're kicking fear out. This is when you're kicking depression out, anxiety out, low self-esteem out. Because one thing I understand, and I took it all the way to my 30s, that low self-esteem was just part of rejection. Mm-hmm. Low self-esteem was part of rejection, and I wanted to get rid of rejection so bad, because it weighs on you to a point where you want to be accepted by everybody, and trying to be accepted by everybody, you dismiss the ones that's supposed to be in your life.
And it's like, and it don't even have to be everybody. It can be that one person that you want it from.
Mm. Yeah.
But if they can't give it, they can't give it, and then it seeps out into other parts of your life. Yeah. And it contaminates it. Mm. Because one of the things I realized was it was hard for me to take a compliment. It was hard for me to believe that compliment, because it didn't come from the person that I wanted it to come from.
Right.
And they would give it, then take it back. Well, if they don't see it, and they're supposed to be the ones to see it, then it must not be true.
Right.
No. Mm-mm. You gotta find what, like, you can hold on to.
Right. And you have to, again, going back to how you view yourself, you got to believe who you are and know who you are. Because in rejection, And like you said, it could be a rejection from that one person. And again, it don't necessarily have to be a spouse.
Mm-hmm.
This can be a daddy issue. This can be a mommy issue. This can be never having a real friend type issue. Always being an outcast type issue, whatever it is. It can become toxic because now we're looking for attention in all the wrong places. Now I'm posting stuff or I'm trying to get some type of response because where I'm wanting validation from, I'm not getting it. But not understanding that God is showing me that I don't need validation from man. God has given me validation in his eyes. And so that's the beautiful part of going through this journey right here. When you're overcoming something, when you're overcoming darkness, it's on so many levels. Like that thing is so rooted. It can start from a child and go all the way up to, like I said, I just turned 40, but it was some things that I didn't even recognize and could even acknowledge till I was like 35 years old. And so that's part of discovering your self-worth and your value. Okay, I'm gonna go to another question. Okay. Okay, so how did you really move forward? What kept you sane in the times of getting better? Because we all fall down in the process of getting better.
Hobbies.
Okay.
Hobbies, that was a big one for me. I got back into hobbies that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
I looked forward to having something each day. Even if something small, like, what is going to make you happy today? I'm not worried about tomorrow, but right now.
Right.
And that's okay. It's okay to be focused on something in this moment and not worried about the future. Because we don't know what the future is. We don't know what tomorrow is going to look like at all. We can have a schedule. We know, okay, that's set. But we really don't know what tomorrow's going to look like for us. So I'm going to hold on to something for this day.
For this moment.
Because I need that to get through today. Because sometimes, like they say, as long as I woke up today, that was enough. That was enough. But what now can I get? What can help me get through today?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to fall back into those patterns.
And some days really are hard. Some days, like the flow of, like, the thoughts and the memories just hit you. And so when that happens, you got to keep yourself busy. And even if busy is writing, you know, whatever is going to give you something that you can actually release. Because I think one of the worst things to do is to ignore it. Ignore a hard day.
You can't do that.
Right.
Because that hard day is going to make tomorrow a hard day.
Right.
Then the next day is going to be a hard day. It's better for me to just face what is hard right now than for me to prolong it.
Right.
Because that lies dormant in our bodies.
I tell my friends all the time, like, feel what you're feeling. Feel what you're feeling.
If you're angry with me, tell me you're angry. It's okay.
Right.
It's okay. I know I got on your nerves today.
Right. Because I know sometimes, even now, something that I apply is, like, I'll sit in the car for like 10 or 15 minutes. And because here's the thing, it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing journey. Every day isn't going to be a great day. Every day isn't going to be a phenomenal day. They say the day is what you make it. But some days you see that you're faced with a lot of stuff, but you still have a choice and you still have to acknowledge what you're faced with. Sometimes you just got to let it out. Sometimes you got to pull over and cry.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got to pull over and say, you know what? I'm not okay. But you know what? This is what I'm going to do to replace it. Because what the Bible says is an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And so if you pretend like it's not happening and you see that, you know your body feels it. Like your body can tell on you before you can even acknowledge it. Like your body can go under like so much stress that it begins to shut down. Your blood pressure go up, you're swelling up. Like you said, your feet was hurting. Like your body knows that it is something going on. You need to acknowledge it.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a random day, a random sunny, nice day, and then I have a flood of a memory of something I went through, and I'm like, I really shouldn't have gone through that, and I'm having a rough moment right now, and I'm on the highway, and I'm crying, and I'm booing, and instead of suppressing it, I'm just letting it flow, and I'm like, I know these people in the car next to me think I'm crazy, but I don't care. Let me feel it so I can go through the rest of my day.
But don't you deserve to feel it though?
We deserve to feel it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's for you and nobody else.
Because some people will say, well, how long is it going to take? Like, you know, like some people, like, why is it that out the blue you just feel something? People don't understand that it hits you like waves sometimes, like trauma, triggers. You can be triggered by anything. I can be triggered by anything. And so don't you have a right to feel that emotion?
And you want to feel it. I want to feel it because I'm at the point now where my bad days are small compared to my good days. Because I allowed myself to feel it and go through it.
Right.
I allowed myself to heal and work through that. And now when I look back, some days I'm like, oh, I didn't cry today. Or I didn't feel that weird feeling.
Right.
Or I didn't even think about that person today. And then you get into a bigger reflection of, wow, that's where I was last year, but look at me right now. Yes, right now is hard, but it's nothing compared to last year.
Bad.
Nothing at all. And so then that's when that gratitude comes in. And that's why I'm big on gratitude every day. Because it reminds me that there is always something to be happy and joyful about. Even in my bad times, I woke up today. I'm grateful for that. Because I could be dead.
Right.
I have breath in my body. I'm grateful for that. I have my friends. I'm grateful for that. I have this new book that I'm ready to read. I'm grateful for that.
Right.
It's something small, but now it's when I look back at what I wrote, oh, I didn't want to be alive last year. But today I'm thankful that I woke up. That's big. And that may be small to some people or insignificant to some people, but I'm nowhere where I was last year.
And that's a win.
And that's a win.
Okay, I'm gonna ask one more question, and if you all have any questions, y'all can send them now. Let's see here. Okay. You talked about the moment that you wanted to end your life. Was that the only time, or did you have other times that you wanted to call it a quit?
I don't know if they're saying call it a quit in like relationally or life.
Life. They're talking about life.
The other time was probably my father's passing. That's when I wanted to not be here anymore.
Right.
That was a hurt that hurts like nothing you can even put into words. Suffocating. That's as best I can describe it as suffocating. Like literally there were some days where I could not breathe and I felt lightheaded and I had to call my best friend. I had to be like, can't breathe. Or I don't know why I'm feeling like this, but it feels like the room is closing in on me. My face is getting hot. I don't know what to do. And that probably was one that really stands out is that time.
Did those moments scare you like scare you far as you actually wanted to go that far?
Absolutely, because I had at the time he had just turned 3. He was 3, my son, and I'm like, dang, like he gonna lose me and a grandparent. That's scary. And then I was blessed with New Life, and that saved me. But yeah, I mean, I think it would be crazy of me to say that I wasn't scared, or I mean, what? I don't know these feelings. This is new.
Right.
I never lost a parent before. Obviously, it's new. It's scary. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel, but I know what I feel right now. I don't know how to navigate this. It feels like you're not going to get through it. You do. You learn to live life around it. I don't think you ever get over it. You're not going to ever get over that.
That's good. You learn to live life around it. So you don't take away from it because you still respect it and honor it. You know, that was a great loss. And so I think that go back to trying to ignore things. You know, don't ignore it. The things that you have been through, the things that you have overcame, the big dramatic shocks to your life. Like, don't feel like you have to ignore it or erase it out your book. Live around it. That is good. That.
Because that's like that thing where we explained before. I don't know if we explained it last time, but grief is here. It's always this size. But it feels like it gets smaller because life grows around it. It's always there. Always. That's like telling somebody you lost a child. Get over it. That pain is always going to be there.
Yeah.
Oh, he cheated on you? Okay, move on. No, it still hurts. It still hurts. But life is still lifing around it.
Right.
And we're still learning to navigate around it. So it's there, but I'm no longer bound by it.
That's good. I think that when we understand how powerful we really are, like the blows don't hurt as much. Like they still hurt, but they don't hit us to a point where we were who we used to be. This whole thing is a growing process. You get stronger and stronger no matter what comes against you. Like you can go through the same exact thing again and you like, wow, like that was a blow, but I'm stronger. I'm a different version. Like if I were to go through the things that I've been through in my past, they may still hurt, but I'm a stronger version. I'm a more potent version of who I am, you know, and I completely understand that I have to activate that. I have to, because you ever seen the movies, and then we're gonna end, where somebody is bullied their whole life and then they grow up into something special, but then that very person that bullied them comes up and they take a moment and they want to shrink back down. I study that, and I studied that in myself, and nothing will ever intimidate me or overshadow me again to the point where I will shrink. You know, I will decree and declare each and every time, I'm not about to shrink. I'm not about to shrink for that. I'm not about to shrink for that situation, that circumstance, because it took a lot to get where I am.
And I have a choice.
And I have a choice. Okay. Let's see here. I don't want to skip anybody. Okay. Question. With all you experience, what keeps you going?
Probably what I see coming to pass right now. That keeps me going, because what I thought was impossible then is showing up now in ways far beyond what I could have imagined, because I took a chance on myself. I took a chance on me despite what I was going through. I said yes to myself, not to somebody else. To me.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. You said that good. What keeps me going, outside of God, I could say my kids keep me going, my husband keeps me going. But what keeps me going is God giving me a mind frame to say yes to me. Because I said no to myself so long. And I see what birthed out saying yes to me looks like. And I refuse to shut the door on myself again.
Because what we thought was impossible, what we thought were no's then are yeses now.
Yeah.
And one thing it's a song I sing every day now, and it's, I sought the Lord. He heard and he answered.
Yeah.
Because back then, it felt like he wasn't. But he was. He was preparing us for this moment because we couldn't handle it then.
Yeah.
But we can handle it now.
Yes.
And so as I sought the Lord, he heard and he answered. And that's powerful. So powerful. Because nobody else but him could have done it. He brought you out of that darkness. Yeah. I trust in God, my Savior.
Yeah. I listen to that song almost every day. Because sometimes when God answers, and it's not the answer we think, we think he's not answering us, but he answered. He answered.
And we think we're failing and we're not. And what it say? I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. See, now you got me crying again. But it's like, I sought him for me.
For me.
Nobody else. I sought the Lord and he heard and he answered.
That's what makes it personal. Because you want to show up. You want to show up as a virgin for your kids and for your family. That's different. But when you want to show up for yourself and you go to God for yourself, it's easy for us to pray for our friends and our family and our children, but it's different when you're praying for yourself.
You got to stand in the gap for you.
Woo.
For you. So I got to tell you everything that I'm going through.
Woo.
We sought him and he answered.
And he answered. Okay. Woo. All right, y'all.
I promise I'm not a horrible singer, but when you cry and you sing, you can't sing.
Okay, well, we are going to close out. Thank you so much for joining in again. Before we leave, if you have anything that you want to encourage to someone that's listening right now that's facing darkness, what would it be?
Keep going. You're not alone. Seek help. You can't do it by yourself. Because when we lean on ourselves, we always fail. And there's always a community of people who want to be around you. Even if the ones that you see right now, they ain't it. Find you a community that can love on you and pour into you, because that matters.
That matters.
We are meant for community.
Be careful of your surroundings. The Bible does say bad company corrupts good character, but think about what happens when you have good company. And God has people that's ordained to be around you, assigned to be near you, to help pour into you. That is it. That is all. Father God, we come to you as humbly as we know how, God. We thank you, oh God, for this podcast. We thank you for this episode, God. We thank you for your woman servant, oh God. We thank you for allowing her to be transparent, oh God, to be vulnerable with your people, oh God, to help encourage and inspire. God, I ask that everybody that is listening and watching, that you continue to heal them from the inside out, oh God. God, we are here and we are decreeing and declaring that we trust in you. We trust in you, oh God. We will continue to seek your face, oh God. We will continue to lean on you, oh God. And we just ask that you just have your complete way in our lives. God, we thank you and we bless your holy name. In the name of Jesus, amen.